Welcome, everyone. It's a new episode of Business Meets Life. And today we are traveling from beautiful Australia to amazing Toronto, Canada. We have wonderful Alexander Michael Gittens with us. He is a business strategist with 30 years of experience. I know he looks pretty young, but he has 30 years of experience advising founder-led organizations and senior leadership teams on unlocking durable growth. AMG holds an MBA, completed doctoral coursework in strategy, and has served as a keynote speaker, advisor, and mentor across financial institutions, universities, and national programs. AMG, I know it's late evening. You've had a long day already. You did not make any excuses. I know you're workaholic. How are you doing tonight?
Well, after that introduction, I am doing much better. I've got tons of energy and super happy to be here with you here today, Janine.
Thank you so much. Ooh, that's gonna be exciting. So just from the first impression, guys, would you believe me if I actually tell you that AMG used to be quite shy? He is still an introvert. And I sometimes hear these people coming up with these excuses. Because I'm not an extrovert, I can't do sales, I cannot be good in this or that. Like, how have you overcome the hurdle of, for example, being shy or being an introvert towards becoming successful? And you seem sometimes like an extrovert, the way how you talk.
Sure. Well, let's tell you how things went wrong before we talk about how things went right. And so I was
Ooh.
the kind of person where if I was in a room and the person at the front of the room said, we're going to go around the table and everyone's going to introduce themselves and say a little bit about themselves, Janine, I would be so nervous. I would be listening to what everyone else said. I'd be thinking about what I want to say. And then when it became my turn to speak, I would get nervous, get shy. I would start to stammer and I couldn't present myself the way I wanted to. Then they would move on to the next person and I would think of all the things that I wanted to say. And so I just thought that was my personality. I'd never overcome it. Then when I started doing my MBA, I did it in the States. And those were the most assertive, confident business people I had ever been around. And
Oh,
I
yes.
realized very quickly that if I don't learn to present my ideas at a high level, it doesn't matter how intelligent I think I am. It doesn't matter how good I think my ideas are. I'm always going to be getting attacks on everything I say if I can't present my ideas clearly and at altitude. So that was kind of the part where I realized that I needed to get better at it. Now let me tell you what I did to get better. So when I realized when I realized I needed to get better, I just said, look, I'm going to take every opportunity to speak up. If someone says, does anyone have any questions? I'm going to speak up. If someone's looking for someone to get to the front of the room and present, I'm going to do it. And I started knocking on door to door for businesses, selling my little website development business I had back in the late 90s. And I just literally did 21,000 proposals to get my first 600 clients until presenting myself just felt like natural. And so I got over it the old fashioned way. I just kept working. I was bad at it for years and got better slowly.
Wow, what an achievement. And again, it shows, like, especially sales, it is a numbers game, right? So on your LinkedIn, for example, you have this really cool tagline, or was it on your website where I found it? Work I choose, people I trust. What did you experience in your career that made you become so selective?
Yeah, so great question. Coming out of my MBA, I had 3 jobs that were headhunting me. One was Lehman Brothers, and we know what happened to that company. The other was Accenture, and the third one was the Detroit Lions NFL football team, American Football League team. And so when I was interviewing for Accenture, they asked all sorts of interesting questions and put me through case competitions and all that sort of thing. But the manager came up to me after they did my personality assessment and said that I was in the 99th percentile for independence. And so he seemed nervous and he was saying, AMG, when you work here, you're going to get a chance to do things your own way. But we are working as a team. We want you to know that's the way we work. And we know you won't stay here for long. And Janine, I was just trying to get a job. So I was like, what is he talking about? But it turns out that right from back then in my personality test, it showed that I am hyper independent. I'm always going to want to do things my own way. So I felt like, okay, in business, I need to make sure that when I have clients, when I have partners, that these are people that I would want to run through a wall for. Because it turns out that when I feel like I'm working with the right people, when I feel like I'm aligned on outcomes and values, it just unlocks the best part of me. I'm not someone who works well with people who we just have different values or we have different
Yeah.
priorities. I need to be aligned. And when I'm aligned, I'm clear. And when I'm clear, I'm
Yeah.
effective. And so right from the beginning, I make sure, just like when you and I met and we did our pre-interview, instant synergy. I knew you would be a wonderful person to connect with in business. You'd be a wonderful person to know for international relations. So I was super excited to have this conversation.
I'm so happy that you also reached out, and it's interesting that you're
Mhm.
mentioning this now.
Yep,
I
yep.
mean, as a soft skill trainer myself, we often use these kind of personality tests. And
Mm,
when I was still working for HP for 7 years, and this was right before I went into my 2 semesters abroad for my master's in China,
wow.
my new boss was actually saying, "Yes, someone like you is not going to stay with us." Like we
Mhm,
went through a split and then a merger, and I didn't understand
mhm.
it until like, and especially if you have so much experience, like it's
Yeah.
especially like not just work experience, but you know people very well that you can already like according to their type, their personality,
Mhm.
foresee where they might thrive and where they might not.
Absolutely. And to your credit, because you know yourself so well, you've tested yourself in so many different business environments, international environments, and you know because you speak multiple languages, your personality is a little different in each language, and you kind of get to know different parts of yourself. So when you're younger and you're first entering the workforce, you may not be able to see things in yourself or other people. But as you do experience different environments and you know yourself a little bit better, you can actually look at someone and figure out what makes them excellent or where their shortcomings would be much quicker than you could for your own self. So it's just, I think that's called perspective, and it's why we need each other. So that's a good thing.
And I love how you just mentioned that we actually have these different kind of like personalities when
Mhm,
we speak different languages. How would you
mhm.
describe your French speaking personality versus your English speaking personality?
Okay, so this is super weird and super random, but kind of cool at the same time. So I'm a Canadian. I was born in Canada. I was raised everywhere in the province of Ontario. I now live in Toronto, but I didn't grow up here. And when I was 15, 16, 17, I was a world class piano player. I was a world class athlete. And so I traveled a lot. And almost 4 months of the year, 2 months of the year, I would be in America. I'd be in 40 different states and touring and traveling and performing. And then I left college. I left for college a year early and I ended up doing my second degree in the States and having interactions there. So when I came back to Canada, there were many Canadians that thought I had an American accent, which is horrible, horrible,
Mhm.
horrible. It's the worst thing in the world, right? So I'm being facetious, but I realized that I don't really sound the same as I used to because I've been in different environments. So now I
Yeah.
go to France and I never learned French properly. I basically watched a lot of French television and I was afraid to speak French in Paris because their French sounds like music. It's so beautiful, especially in like the ninth and the sixth neighborhood. It's gorgeous French. But when I spoke, somehow those Parisians could tell that I wasn't Quebecois from Canada, that I wasn't from a French speaking family. And they told me my accent sounds like I'm from Marseille in the south of France. And because
Interesting.
my French is horrible, but because my accent sounds like I am an American speaking French, they keep telling me how well I speak French. So I went from having so little confidence in my French to thinking, well, I sound like I'm from the south of France and I sound like I have a great
Whoa.
accent. So I just had more confidence. So I spoke more. And when you speak more, you get better at the language. So I would say when I speak French, I sound like an arrogant American more than a humble Canadian. And somehow it all works. Somehow it all works. I have too much confidence in a language that I'm slightly better than mediocre at. But yeah, I would say Canadians, I'm more humble when I speak English. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing these wonderful examples. And I mean, as a German, yeah, we do speak French as well. And I work with a lot of French back in
Mhm.
China and studied a French grande école as well. So, but never in French, always in English, funnily. And this goes
Oh,
back to the core. Everything goes back to self-esteem and confidence, right?
mhm,
So when you actually do have a bit more confidence, and I felt a bit shy about me speaking French when I was abroad
mhm.
and of making mistakes. Like, for example, a lot of Chinese, they speak English, they learn it, but their reading and writing is better than their speaking because if you're
Very
shy,
true.
they overthink, it goes back to confidence. Then they don't
Mhm,
practice because they're afraid of making mistakes. And I think of being a business owner or speaking in language,
mhm.
all we gotta need is just like jump into cold water, gain that confidence, and then like
100%.
really great results come out.
100%.
So, after 30 years of advising leaders, what is something you now believe about business that you would have strongly disagreed with 20 years ago?
Yeah, yeah. So this is a great question. And I was thinking about this the other day. I always, there's a line in Julius Caesar by Shakespeare when he says,
Mhm.
men are flesh and blood and apprehensive. And it's this big arrogant speech he's giving when he says, I am so constant and everyone else is so irrational. And it's moments before he dies. So pride comes before a fall. But I remember I used to always think in high school that when I get into the business world, it's going to be so rational and people are going to be good actors and it's going to be quantitative and it's going to have rules. And 600 CEO clients later, people are people. And if you can learn to communicate, if you can learn to persuade, if you can learn to de escalate arguments, if you can learn to take the temperature of a room, if you can learn not to get defensive when someone doesn't, it's as you go as a person, so you go as a business person. And when I thought business was quantitative and it was rational, business is about people, full stop. And the degree to which
Ooh.
you can have trust, which is made up of competency and character and consistency, and to the degree which you realize it's not about me, it's up to me. If you can get those two ideas down, you'll probably be a pretty solid business person.
You just mentioned trust. I mean,
Mhm.
every successful business person like you mentions that probably in nearly each of my podcast interviews.
Sure.
You also emphasized selectivity earlier.
Mhm.
How do you now decide who is worth building with and who isn't? What are
Oh
the
man,
metrics, the KPIs?
what a what a great question. Yeah. So let's think of a diagram where we have concentric circles. And a lot of people think about their work and their life kind of like a Venn diagram where they have their life on one
Mhm.
side, their work on the other side, and then there's this part where it overlaps and they may call that work life balance. That is
Mm.
not at all the way I look at anything. I do not look at life that way. My life doesn't run that way. I have a larger concentric circle, which is called my purpose, which is called my
Mm.
value system, which is has holds things like fulfillment and impact and joy and family. And then that is how I do everything I do, how I make all my decisions. Then somewhere inside that larger circle is a little circle that has business on it. So, quite literally, the way I operate in business is a subsection and wholly encompassed in the person I am and the life I want to live. So, the alignment now comes from understanding that moment by moment, my decisions, when in alignment with my purpose, will give me the compound interest of all of my choices. I'll say it another way: the life that I want to live and the person I want to become and the impact I want to have is the accumulation of all of my little choices, even the ones that don't seem important. So I can't afford to be misaligned because we know how compound interest works. You keep
Yeah.
investing, and over time, it grows to something incredible. Well, you can't just keep taking your money in and out of the market if you want compound interest. You need to be consistent and you need to let it grow. So, my choices in business for partners and for clients, it has to align with my choices for the impact that I want to see in the world. So, that means that there are certain partners that they won't be a fit just based on the way they operate or what their goals are. No judgment. They're not bad. I'm not good. It's just misaligned. It's the wrong investment for me. And then there are other
Mm.
partners where I can't imagine having a life without this person in it. And people come and go even when we think they're going to last forever. But if I'm excited to interact with you and build something with you, that's more important to me than does it actually work or not. So I'm optimizing for a life of fulfillment and purpose, not a life of having a ton of money and extracting value from people along the way.
That is interesting that you mention this
Mhm,
because from the impression that I had from you so far,
mhm.
you seem a bit more like, I mean, serial entrepreneur, you're really into business, you're really into challenging, developing
Sure,
yourself, growing. I would say definitely more like business focused.
sure.
Also, as you mentioned, like it's not that you're like married with 50 children
Not
and so
50.
on.
Yeah. So,
So I feel like, isn't that the contrary of what you just mentioned? It seems
mhm,
like your business is that important, although you did mention family and you just mentioned that business is just a part of it instead of the other way
sure.
around.
Sure. And it's a wonderful observation. And that's where it allows for the alignment to be even more intimate than demographics or psychographics. So for example,
Mhm.
I have 6 godchildren. And these are children that are in my life. My goddaughter, I was there, the third person in the world to hold her, and she has expectations of me as her godfather
Mm.
for how much time I spend with her, how I teach her, how I work with her. I have 3 nephews. I have a niece. I have a family that relies on me. And if you define family and relationships only romantically, and if you defined, having a family unit as only the few humans that you create, well, then you kind of lose the very foundation of what it means to have a relationship. I'll give you an example.
Well said.
The relationship I have with nature is very important. If I use nature mindlessly for my own advantage, why would I expect to ever be the best version of myself if I'm extracting value? If I don't
Mhm.
respect my need for nutrition, I don't respect people who have a different path than me, how could I ever expect to have someone help me in an area that I'm absolutely horrible at? So, if you think about family as I have children and I have a spouse, you're not wrong. And through the marvels of the difference between men and women, I have a little bit more time to make those decisions than maybe my sisters have just biologically. First, we have to decide who would have me in the first place, but that's beyond the scope of this conversation. But what I'm saying is that everything I do is an emphatic declaration of everything I am and want to be. And I don't reduce that to any kind of structure. I'm representing myself and my values even when people aren't watching. So that will lead me towards the best version of me, which is the highest and the best goal I can think of.
And it sounds like you have very clear boundaries. You are very aware of your values, what you want, and you seem very well aligned.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, right? But at the end of the day, life is beautiful and it's challenging, and the universe gives you all these opportunities and these challenges to kind of see if you'll stay true, right? Like when things go wrong, will you stay aligned? And I make mistakes as often as anyone else, right? But since we both kind of like Eastern philosophy, I'll give you something that Confucius said that's kind of helpful. So Confucius
Yes,
said
please.
that, yeah, he said there's 3 ways we can get wisdom through imitation, which is the easiest, through experience, which is the bitterest, and through reflection, which is the noblest. And so
Mm.
I use reflection a lot because I mess up a lot, but I try to think about what I did and I try to ask myself, can I make restitution? Can I apologize? Can I make it better? Sometimes you can't. You
Mm.
just got to take the L and you got to move on. But it's not about like I don't really get a lot right. I just try to get a lot aligned and I try to really take
Mm.
accountability for my own choices. So I don't put pressure on myself to be perfect, Janine. I put pressure on myself to be true to the things that I know are important to me. And then I just trust
Mhm.
the universe to compound not my great choices or my bad choices, but my consistent patterns of behavior. And so it's a much more peaceful way to look at it because I know how imperfect I am, but I have the opportunity to get closer to my ideal self in my moment by moment choices. And that opportunity is more exciting to me than trying to be perfect or trying to have someone look at me a certain way. I don't know how people look at me. I think the way
Yeah.
I look at myself would probably be more important to me.
What is a typical pattern on how you self-sabotage? For example, I do a
Mhm,
lot of like mental fitness, or we also call it positive intelligence programs,
mhm.
also with the big four consulting companies, with
Sure,
managers there, even in France and other companies. And for example, the perfectionist is one of these typical thought patterns and also like saboteurs that we have, or like the
sure.
controller, procrastination. What is one way of self sabotage that you do?
How much time do we have? So that's the question we gotta
As
ask.
much as you have until you fall asleep.
Yeah, let's pick one, right? Because I can be my own worst enemy. And
We
I
all
have
are sometimes.
yeah, well, thank you for that, right? But there's I've been blessed. I have a lot of pretty kind of interesting talents that I have. And school came a little bit easier for me. And as you get older and as you get in business, I mean, the grades you got in school could not matter less. And how well you can perform on standardized tests, it couldn't matter less. And there's parts of running a business which are just boring, repetitive work you have to do. And because I've been at this so long, I can't fool myself and say, oh, there's something more interesting and more fun I should be working on. No, no, sometimes I just need
Mm,
to spend 4 hours a day doing business development, reaching out to new
mm,
clients, new CEOs, building relationships with them. That part to me as an introvert is exhausting. I don't get energy from having 20 small conversations. I get energy from having one deep conversation with someone that I'm aligned with. So when it comes
yeah.
to things like the boring, repetitive things that nobody sees that makes a business successful, I almost have to like create little tiny goals for myself or not let
Mm,
myself do things I want to do. Like I have to play an infinite game of like denial and like deferred gratification because I'll always find something more clever to work on. But sometimes it's
mm,
just about doing what needs to be done. And 95% of my job is not as shiny and interesting as it looks on LinkedIn. A lot of it
absolutely.
is mechanically getting things to fit intellectually, getting strategies to make sense, doing outreach for clients. It's not glamorous behind the scenes, but that's the part where I self-sabotage is I tell myself there's something more exciting, more shiny, more fun I should be working on when I
Mm,
know that I have to put my head down, eat the right food, go to sleep early, disappear for 6 weeks, and just knock something out. So, yes, my self sabotage is telling myself there's other work I should be doing when I know that I just got to check things off this to do list here. Just, yeah. So, that I
I
would say
feel
that
you.
yeah, that's the worst thing. It's just I know what to do, but it's not the most fun thing to do. So, I got to do
I
it
feel
anyway.
you.
Okay. You
We
have the
all
same.
have that, right? Instead of just eating that frog. Now, let's talk a little bit more about your work. When you
Sure.
enter a business and you speak to, let's say, these 20 new CEOs, you
Mhm.
often identify leaks in momentum.
Yeah.
What's one subtle signal that tells you within minutes that a
Yeah.
company is misaligned?
Oh my gosh, I'll do it within seconds. I mean, I've seen this so many times. So the first the first symptom, it feels like it's a like a sales problem. It feels like it is a communication problem. And it's much
Mm,
worse than that. It's a much bigger problem. I'll tell you what CEOs say to me. They say that they're working as hard as ever. They've reached seven-figure sales, so they're between 1 million to about 4 or 5 million in annual reoccurring revenue. And they feel like they have to put more effort to grow the company now that it's technically successful than they had to do before. And they're just like,
mm,
we're doing meaningful work. We're working really hard, but momentum feels harder than it should. So that feeling is the first symptom that I have, that they are learning that the tools, the abilities that got them to this level are not the same tools and abilities that will help them scale into the 8 and 9 figure one. So it's really just a feeling that they have that I know I'm working hard, but the momentum is not matching the effort I'm putting in. That's the first thing that will connect with a client of mine. They'll say, yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly how I feel. Yeah.
And with the work that you're doing, tell us a little bit more. Maybe you can even give an example, like
Sure.
how did you get a specific company now from that stage to, for example, an 8-figure business, or to
Yeah.
help them overcome? What exactly do you do in your work then with your
Okay.
team?
So typically what happens is hard work doesn't scale, your time is finite, and the things that you were able to brute force your way to maybe a $2 million company, they were based too often on the effort of the CEO, the effort of the founder, and the fact that there was a small
Mm.
team, only 5 people, they talked every day. Now your team grows, and there are people that you don't talk to every day, and everyone's got a different idea of what the company is, where they're heading, what it should do. So now the person who is so good at growing the company is spending all of this time putting out fires, dealing with administration, and they just have the weight. You can call it a diseconomy of scale. They just have all this weight of, I'm collapsing under the weight of this company. So what
Mm.
happens is their emotional state, and I'm not trying to be qualitative just for qualitative sake. This is what they think and this is what they feel. I dreamed of being in the position I'm in. I should be happy. My business is doing well. I have a great life. Why am I uninspired? Why does this feel so hard? Why is it not? That's what they feel. What it is that's typically wrong is that something in the way that they are positioned, packaged, or communicated is not in alignment. And at our company, we have some IP around each of those 3 areas where we can define, are they targeting the right market? Are they targeting people who can say yes to them, they can afford them, they're easy to target, they're growing, and they have the same massive pain? Then on the packaging side, we can say, hey, look, are they communicating the dream outcome? Does it feel like it has no risk? Does it feel like it happens right away? Does it feel as if there's absolutely no time delay? Then on the messaging
Mm.
side, we can say, can they talk about where they want to get their clients better than their clients could? Can they identify where their clients are now even more clearly than the client could? And can they position their solution as the bridge? Janine, quite literally, when you quantify those variables, so 4 variables in the first one, 4 variables in the
Yeah.
second one, and 3 variables in the third, you just fix that equation and it's like the business start. I mean, it's not easy, but it is simple. So it's pretty simple, but it's not easy. But that's typically what it is: positioning, packaging, and communication.
You make it sound quite simple, yeah. So,
Mm.
what's one uncomfortable truth about how the market perceives value that most founders don't want to accept?
Oh my God. I dealt with this in the meeting before this one. Like I
Oh,
have
really?
this, I'll tell you a little bit about my client. She'll know who she is, but I won't say her name. So
Of course.
she's brilliant. She's a former lawyer. She got her MBA from Yale. She's got an incredible fintech startup. She is the hardest working
Wow.
woman, the most successful woman. So it's not going to be her work ethic. It's not going to be her intelligence. Those will not keep her back. Not at all. When you talk to her and you work with her and you're going over what needs to change, she is so hardworking and so successful, she'll keep optimizing for the things that she already does well. And if there's a new area that needs to grow or needs to learn, she's willing to look at it, but it takes her just a beat longer to start focusing on the things that absolutely need to be done rather than do the things that she's good at doing. So it's something that I see all the time. Yeah.
And why is that? Is it because it gets her out of the comfort zone? It takes more mental energy, or?
When someone's been successful being who they are, that's not something that is about their behavior. It's something that's about their identity. And you have to be
Mm.
very careful. And that's why a lot of my business is just knowing how to talk to powerful people. You have to be very careful when you start talking about someone's identity because that's their reward system. There's 4 things that make humans really feel like they're in a great place. Number 1 is being
Yeah.
seen. If you can
Mm.
notice something about someone and say, hey, especially something that they had to put effort in, like their choice of outfit or clothing or the way they present themselves, something that they take pride in, being seen is incredible. The second thing is being acknowledged. Is someone just
Mm,
saying, not only do I see you, but I'm taking a little bit of time to acknowledge that we wouldn't have gotten this outcome if you weren't involved. And we're so happy to have you. The third one is having a vision that they can connect with. Like, where are you going? What, and when you spoke about your business partners in Australia, you, when we spoke months ago, you had such a wonderful vision that you connected with. And someone like you, once you have a North Star, I mean, no one can stop you from getting there. And then the fourth
yeah.
one is, do they feel safe? Do they feel safe with you? So when you have
Mm,
super powerful people that for their whole life, they've been the smartest, they've been the fastest, and you need to tell them that you are lacking in this area, that you are the bottleneck that's keeping your business from going forward, that you've been skipping leg day when it comes to the business where you've only been working on your upper body and your core is
yeah.
horrible. You can't just tell, it's not, they're not delicate, but their identity is, this is what made me successful. And if you can't help them forge a new identity that's aligned with the behaviors they need to move forward, then it won't matter what incredible strategy you come up with, it won't land. And so those four things are fundamental to any human. And for CEOs, it's feeling safe with this path that I've designed for them and the outcome that they want.
Mm. Thank you for mentioning this. And talking about identity, it's funny. So today
Mhm.
we are in day number 9 of our daily 30-day podcast.
Sure.
And I was speaking to different people. So a lot has been triggered even by me from the things that
Mhm.
I'm learning, the inspiration I get from experts like you. And I just hired a new coach yesterday. So we
Oh,
started to
wonderful.
work on my identity in a completely different way. And I literally had to shed off 3 things and 3 people yesterday at the same time,
Mhm.
right? You got to fire the negative people or the ones that are not aligned with your North Star anymore. Do
Mhm.
you have a coach? Do you have any mentors?
I don't, and I should, but I am a mentor. So I work with the Scotiabank Women's Initiative. So I mentor Canadian business women all across the nation. But I mentioned I was shy growing up, and I know the more I speak, the more that seems unlikely. But Janine, I am a reader. I mean, I love to read. I start my week off Sunday morning. I'll tell you my life hack. It's a simple one, but it's beautiful. So
Yes,
I'm
please.
here downtown Toronto, Canada. It's about a city slightly bigger than Chicago, about 7 million people here. And we've got a lot of
Mhm.
luxury hotels. And so I go Sunday morning, 6 a.m. to these luxury hotel lobbies. I have the place to myself. Coffee is the same amount of money as it is at Starbucks, but I've just got a beautiful environment where I can read. Sometimes the staff doesn't even show up till about 7 a.m. And I just get to start my week Sunday morning, watch the sun come up, get an hour or so of reading. If I go all the way to the W Hotel, I get my steps in as well for the day. But it's like just sharing time with some of the best minds that ever existed. It's always been such, I've always loved reading. It's such a major part of my life. And I've been mentored by the best minds that have ever lived through reading. Yeah.
Mm. That's exciting. So if I want to meet you face to face, I know where to come on a Sunday morning.
Yeah. You are the least dangerous stalker I can even think of. You know what? I would even drop a pin and help you find me. Okay, you won't
I
have
appreciate
to
it.
work too hard. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you're the second person from Toronto I'm interviewing now, and
Oh, wonderful.
I have a couple of friends from China. They live half in Toronto, and but I haven't been there yet. So I really hope sooner or later we're going to meet in person there.
Yeah, you'll fit in here. It's the most multicultural city in the world, and if you are ambitious and you are hardworking, there cannot be a better city than Toronto. Especially if you're a visible minority or a woman or you speak another language. I mean, there cannot be a better city in the world. But I'm okay
Mhm.
if it's a globally well kept secret because it's just a wonderful gem we've got here.
Amazing. So you've advised leaders across industries and continents. And I mean, you have also given tons of keynote speeches all around the world. I also saw Germany, I think Austria even lined up on your profile. What separates leaders who create lasting impact from those who only create short-term success?
Yeah, it's a two-word answer: the people and vision. It's if you can connect those two things. And I mean, we spoke about this earlier in our pre-interview, and the best way to do that is a story. If you have a story that connects people to your vision and you are consistent in your competency, in your character, in your communication, yeah, I mean, you can create anything you want to create. Yeah, people and vision. Connect those two things with a story and then be consistently who you say you are. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
We have some comments here in the chat. People are definitely resonating with what you are sharing. And
Good.
having interviewed so many successful people like you, it's very interesting that many of these successful C-level people would be reading a lot, right? Like I personally prefer consuming my content nowadays through online trainings, basically.
Sure.
But what would be your best advice you've ever received? One for life and one for work.
I thought about this the other day because I didn't study philosophy in school, but I love philosophy. I love the questions it asks, and I love that I don't always have answers, and I mix up phenomenology with ontology and epistemology. I'm all over the place. But I think about these wise men and women who lived before we could, before we did. And most of the people were illiterate at the time, and they're trying to pass on the wisdom of the ages so that people can get a benefit from it. And so they can't come with this complex PowerPoint 20-point slide to explain it. And then you'll just have a philosopher that says something like, know yourself. And so I picture them thinking, this can't be misinterpreted. This is what it needs to be. But Janine, until you get to the point where you're truly honest about who you are, like honest with yourself, then you don't realize how important those two words are. Know yourself. Be true to yourself, because it will get repackaged in our fast food, selfish, drive-through world we have as do what is best for you. You are the most important thing. That's not what I said. I said, be true to yourself. Abraham Lincoln has a quote that summarizes how I feel. He says, I'm not bound to win. I am bound to be true. I am not bound to succeed. I'm bound to live by the light that I have. So if your idea of success is winning and succeeding, nothing wrong with that. We're just not operating from the same playbook. But if you are trying to live by your unique light and be true to your character, your passions, your values, your behaviors, if you're trying to be true to that, then you'll probably be a pretty compelling human being. Then you can connect people and vision. But if you're just consumed with a zero-sum idea of success, you're not just limiting your potential, you're limiting your life.
Yeah. So here in this private members club in Sydney, where I'm a part of it, that's one of the reasons why they do so much like background checks on the people. Because at the end, you might be the most successful person and maybe you make your 100 million in revenues a month and you are one of the best. But if your values aren't aligned, you're not a good person. You don't have like integrity, maybe authenticity, honesty, and these kind of things. Then you like people don't want to do business with you, right? And then also you don't want to connect these people together.
Yeah, the group will always reward the person who makes the group better, and it will always punish the person who extracts from the group. So, but the thing I want to say though, because I don't want to stumble, I've done it unwittingly, and I just want to back up and just use that reflection I talked about that we got from Confucius. And when I talk about values, I'm not talking about morality or good and evil or good and bad. When Aristotle talks about the cardinal virtues and he talks about fortitude, he talks about choosing the higher value even when it's inconvenient. So maybe you're in a situation where someone tells a joke and it's, against the LGBTQ community, And
Yeah.
you realize that for me to speak up right now, it would kind of make the room uncomfortable. But at the same time, I don't want to be someone that joke can be told around. When Aristotle talks about fortitude, he's asking us to choose the harder value that we know is right in that situation. So if you want to be a
Mm.
billionaire, if you want to do it for good or for evil, as long as you don't hurt anyone and as long as you don't take advantage of anyone, do your thing, be ambitious, get it all, make all the money you want in your life. I made and lost enough money at a young age to learn that that is not a complete solution for me. But I wouldn't have
Yeah.
learned that if I didn't have a level of success that was driven by not good fuel, by wanting to
Yeah.
prove that I was better, that the neighborhood I had, the family that I had wouldn't keep me from being, it wasn't clean fuel, but it allowed me to reflect. So I would never say to anyone, you must be a really good person. Don't hurt anybody and don't view success as someone has to go down for you to go up. But if you want to be
Yeah.
ambitious and dive in a pool of like your own $100 bills, like there's nothing, just don't hurt anyone and pay your taxes and you're fine.
Yeah.
Or yeah,
And
yeah.
please invite me once you have like a pool full of $100 bills. I want to swim with you in there.
Well, here's the thing. I'm counting those $100 bills before I let anyone in my pool, okay?
Absolutely. So let's go quickly back to your childhood. And as you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
you are an award-winning pianist and athlete. How
Mhm.
did those early disciplines shape the way you approach strategy and performance today? I have a feeling like one of my coaches from Dubai, like
Mhm.
he was like very selective with his potential clients as well, and he was saying like preferably they should have been former athletes because
Oh,
they
okay.
have these like the discipline and these specific values or routines
Mhm.
that they
Mhm.
actually already have a really strong foundation to become very
Yeah.
successful entrepreneurs too. Do you want
Yeah,
me to repeat the question actually?
I remember the question. Yeah, thank you.
Very good.
There's a gentleman in my gym, and he's a former university athlete for American football, and he was a running back. And 6 a.m., it's the same group of people in the gym every day. And just from
Yeah.
watching how he works out and how he approaches his fitness, we talked about it. And I was talking how about I trust him just based on these micro interactions we've had because he's so diligent and so disciplined. So I could see that being the case. Mine is not quite as optimistic or a straight line. So, growing up in North America, having immigrant parents, being a young Black man growing up in environments where it's almost all white people, there were 6 Black
Yeah.
people in my high school. I'm good at sports, I'm good at music. It just felt like the most stereotypical African American story of all time. He's going to be good at music. Now, music is a lifelong infatuation for me. When I say I love music, every genre. I have favorite composers from every different period. I love hip hop, country, world music, bluegrass,
Awesome.
everything. Like love, not just enjoy, love and understand. But I don't love performing. I never have. I never will. I have learned how to do it at a high level, but I do not need the crowd. I do not want applause. I'm still an introvert in my nature. So music was wonderful for discipline, but I remember my last performance I had, I got a standing ovation. I'm like, I'm never doing this again. When it came to when it came to sports, my whole family is women. Like I have sisters and female cousins, and the chance to like just work with other boys and just like not have to watch what I say the same way. I know it sounds horrible, but it's just there were just too many women in my house. And for a young kid, he just wants like I just wanted a brother or someone I could just, tell stupid jokes without them being like, ooh, gross. So it's a situation where sports and music, I didn't want to be stereotypical and I wanted to find my own path that wasn't like, well, here's a young Black kid who's a good athlete or a young Black kid who's a great musician. So I was determined to use my brain. I got a good one, but I was determined to use my brain to
Yeah.
be able to create something that was more aligned with what I felt inside, not
Mm.
trophies or standing ovations, which are wonderful if that's your
Yeah.
thing. But for
Yeah.
me, it's something I do, it's not something I am.
Yeah, I know we're coming to an end, but I asked you
Mhm.
so many new questions that weren't on my list. I'm afraid I
Sure.
might need to take you for another maybe 5 minutes to
Oh,
answer
okay.
maybe three, four more questions if you're okay.
Absolutely. I was about to say, if you were going to say another session, I was about to say, don't make people sit through another half an hour of me. But if it's only 5 minutes, then yeah, I'll stick around.
Sounds awesome. Okay. So you've spoken with people like Mark Cuban and Richard Branson. What
Mhm.
is one trait they share that most people completely overlook?
I'm going to go a different direction with that because it's something that, as being a Canadian, I do a little bit more naturally. And I'm saying that as someone who has lived in the States, I've worked in the States. I've probably been to more different states than most Americans. I've probably been to about 40 different states. And
I believe
so
you.
yeah. So with Richard Branson, where I met him was as a part of the Rogers Cup tennis tournament here in Toronto. And I
Oh,
was a little
nice.
bit on, yeah, it's the Royal box and it was also the players box. So I saw Djokovic. It was interesting. He was taller and thinner than I thought he would be. But when Richard Branson walked in, I was feeling a little bit uncomfortable in the room because it was a lot of Rogers executives. Rogers, for any Americans, it's kind of like Verizon or Sprint or AT&T. It's the biggest
Yeah.
communication company here in Canada. And when Richard Branson walked in, I just remember that episode of MTV Cribs where he was just being silly and he had an island in the Bahamas and Mariah Carey was in his bed and he was like, "Oh, who is this?" Like he just seemed like Willy Wonka, right? And even though he's a rebel billionaire and he, vacations with Barack Obama, because he felt so real to me on TV, when someone said, "Don't look now," Richard Branson just entered. I went right over to him. I'm like, "Oh, hi, I'm Alexander." And he's like, "I'm Richard." And I was thinking, everybody knows who you are. But I just was speaking to him like I was more comfortable with him than some of these executives that were posturing a little bit. And I have a client who
Mm,
knows him, a millionaire, well, billionaire now, a client from London. And he was saying that Richard will remember that interaction with me because when I pulled away, he kept asking me more questions. And what my client told me is as soon as he's done speaking to you, the next person's going to say, "Here's my business idea. Here's what I'm reading. What do you think about that?" Where with me, I was just talking with him because I felt comfortable with the person that I had seen, and we were joking,
mm,
and the story goes on even further. So because
mhm.
he laughs like black people do, like he has to hug you or touch you when he laughs. So I'm like, "Oh, this feels familiar." But I didn't realize that everyone in the room was watching our interaction. And so I got a call from Rogers, one of their assistants, asking me if I wanted to come to the owner's box at the Rogers Center, which is 20 meters from here. It's just across the street. And I realized my interaction with Richard Branson was so familiar and so comfortable that other people in the room were like, "Well, who is this guy?" Well, I guarantee you I
Mm,
was no one special. But what
mm,
Mark Cuban and Richard Branson had in common is they reacted wonderfully to an interaction where I didn't ask them for anything. I didn't linger and I didn't comport myself to be below them. Walt Whitman
yeah.
said, "Be curious, not judgmental." I was interested to talk to another human being, but part of being
Mm,
Canadian is we don't really have the same reaction, or maybe just it's the neighborhood
yeah.
I live in. But so I think the most important thing was I wasn't looking to extract value. I was curious
Yeah.
and I was more comfortable with Richard than I was the other executives.
Interesting. Okay, hopefully last question. If
Yep.
you stripped away titles, achievements, and recognition, I understand that you're Canadian, not American.
Yep.
What is the one idea or principle you would want to leave behind that truly lasts?
This has changed over the years. This has really changed for me over the years. A younger version of me thought about legacy all the time, how I'm remembered, what impact I can make. When you have children in your life, you you realize a different kind of love where it's kind of like it's not about me, but it's up to me. And that feeling of duty and responsibility, it really goes well with me. I like the way it feels. And the closer someone is to me and the longer they've known me, their opinion of the way that I've respected them, the way that I have dealt with them would be more important to me than what any kind of public persona would be. And Janine, here's the interesting thing. When you are someone who is focused on relationships and having great interactions with the people who mean the most, a very human thing happens. And no matter how successful or important or accomplished someone is, they do look up to you in a way because you've figured out the most human thing, which is be a good person, respect everyone, invest your time and energy in people and places that bring you joy and fulfillment. And at the end of the day, don't judge people, be curious about them. And expect people to reflect the energy that you give to them. And if they don't, have grace. Not everyone's having a best day or going through the best time. And if you can move through the universe with that sort of perspective, you grow larger when you talk. You have more gravitas when you talk, because the sincerity doesn't come from hoping someone will like me. It comes from understanding that the people who know me the best and trust me the best, they are and will be how I judge my own life when the titles are gone and I'm, in a wheelchair and all of that. It's going to be these relationships and the people I choose to do life with. That is the most important thing. So I have perspective and I care more about how I handle the moments of my life and the people in my life than I do care about how I'm viewed externally. I mean, it's not that it means nothing to me. It's just so little in comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I think of myself and what the people I care about think about me, what I do when no one's watching, is way more important to me than what the world would think of me. The world's lovely, but it's just not as important to me.
Thank you so much. Your students at the University of Toronto can be happy to have you as a lecturer, and everyone who has listened to your TEDx talks or any other of your keynote speeches or has you or is working with you, they can be very lucky. So last words, who specifically should reach out to you, work with you, connect with you?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say the people I'm most interested in are people who were like me when I was young. So they would never have the confidence to kind of like reach out to someone like me. They would never feel that they could do that comfortably. And so what I have done is I have a number of essays. You can find them on my website. It's just my name, alexandermichaelgittens.com. I've got a video essay called Higher Profit when I talk about my personal philosophy juxtaposed with my philosophy for business. And you can find that on YouTube by just typing in our company name, Rupert Rodney, and then Higher Profit. But if someone wanted to get in contact with me, weirdly, unusually, the best way to probably do it is read something or consume something that I've put out and just tell me in the comment section what you think. I'll find it, I'll respond to you. But if it's for business, you can look at the company online. But if you want to connect with me, then find an idea that you think I'd care about and share it with me. That's probably will get my attention faster than anything else.
Thank you so much for making time, guys.
Mine.
If you like today's episode, sharing is caring. Send it to your friends, to your family. Subscribe to YouTube, Spotify. Business Meets Life, Janine Jacob. Alexander, I was about to pronounce it in a German way.
Please do.
AMG, thank you so much for making time, sharing this with us. I know it's late in the evening. Yeah, I really appreciate you and our new connection that we have built up. Let's see if there's going to be potential for us working together, because we're both super international business people.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. The pleasure was all mine.
All right, bye guys. I'm ending the live stream now.